Now, we've heard many different opinions from people in Coventry and Warwickshire about HS2 over the course of this week. But how do people feel elsewhere along the proposed rail line? Well, James Lynch is from the SOWHAT campaign, which is based in Leeds, and he joins me now. James, good afternoon. Judging by the name of your campaign, SOWHAT, you're not overly impressed with HS2?
No, we're not overly impressed with it. It was landed on myself and all my fellow residents. I think we represent up to 400 households on the southeast corner of Leeds. And the first we heard of it was the announcement of the proposed route for Phase 2 in January of this year, and it's really, devastated us.
You said that you started the campaign for selfish reasons. Why?
Because I'm personally affected by it financially. My house, it's just a modest townhouse that I live in on a new build estate, which is next to a canal in the Aire Valley in Leeds. If the proposed route goes ahead, the line will be carried on a 40-foot high concrete viaduct, which will be 80 metres away from my front door, and we've been told by estate agents to expect a loss of about £30,000 to £40,000 in the value of our house. And the line also already shows up on land searches against our house. So, if we were wanting to sell, which we did have plans to move on, we've got 2 young children, for getting them into the schools we wanted. We had a kind of long-term plan. That's all been thrown out of the window because, we've been told it will be virtually impossible to attract buyers to buy our house now. So when you're affected like that personally, it's amazing how much interest you actually start to take in the wider economic reasons for HS2, which don't stack up as far as I'm concerned.
The train will be crossing a viaduct, I think, which is about 80 metres from your front door. Now, the government is saying people who live 60 metres or closer, that you're in the safeguarding zone where the government can buy your house, as you might need to knock it down. But presumably you don't fall into that category by 20 metres.
That's absolutely right, yes, and it's amazing how, if you look at the way the line's been drawn, it tends to be just over sort of 60-65 metres away from most of the properties in our area. So we're fully expecting that of the up to 400 households it is, I think there's only about 5 or 6 that we believe are going to fall within the safeguarding zone. Everybody else who's lost personally, financially, is going to get absolutely nothing from the government. It infuriates me when I hear people like Patrick McLaughlin talking about how they are going to look at homeowners and Peter's sale and their exceptional hardship scheme. The facts just don't bear that out. The government has absolutely no interest in offering people fair compensation because they can't afford it.
And people may have well call you a NIMBY because there are wider issues. I mean, you were saying you have children. Part of the expansion is to assure that we have economic growth, we have capacity on our railways, particularly for future generations like your children. How do you respond to that?
Well, if you look at the economic case that's been put forward for HS2, it just doesn't stack up, and there are alternatives to providing the capacity that we need. There's sweeping statements made about how the East and the West Coast main line are going to be full to capacity soon, and if you actually look at it in detail, the data doesn't bear that out, and there are fully costed alternatives put forward by groups like 51M for alternatives. But, even so, if they want to build their train, if there's nothing we can do and they're just going to plough ahead with it regardless, I don't understand how anybody in the UK can say it's fair that somebody like me, who has worked hard all my life, is not a rich person, can be expected to subsidise the cost of the project by £30,000 to £40,000. Is that something that we accept in Great Britain, that I'm just a loser and it's tough luck? So if that makes me a NIMBY, then I'm sorry, but, I don't see why I should be expected to do that.
Has anybody in your area tried to sell their property?
There's people who've had their houses on the market since the announcement, and they're just getting no interest at all. There was one gentleman that had a property on the market. It was a large property. It had just been built in the area, and he had to take a loss. He needed to sell it to make money back to kind of move on in his projects, and he had to accept, I think it was a loss of over £60,000. He had a sale agreed just before the announcement. The sale fell through, and then in order to get his money back out of the project that he was involved in, he then had to resell and agree to take that loss personally. So that loss has contributed to the budget for HS2, because if they were compensating people fairly, then that would have to be part of the budget for HS2, and it just simply isn't at all.
I know that you're going to, I think, or you have been to Leeds Council to speak to the councillors who are talking about it. Have you been, and have you spoken to them yet, or what's the view of Leeds City Council?
Well, City Council as a whole, as an organisation, are obviously they're in favour of it. They believe it's going to bring massive benefits to the city, and if that is the case, and again I say that's extremely questionable, really. We've been to them and we've said if HS2 must be brought into Leeds, if that's your viewpoint, then we want it brought along a route that blights the least amount of people, does the least amount of environmental damage, and also if the government are not going to agree to give people back the money they've lost as a result of this infrastructure project, then we need to look at what the council are going to do in order to compensate. Because if their viewpoint is correct and there is millions or billions of pounds going to come into the Leeds economy and generate business rates and tax receipts for Leeds City Council, then it's only right and fair to me that part of that money that's generated is given back to the people who've been expected to subsidise this project through personal financial losses. And that's the points we made. We took a deputation to the full meeting of Leeds City Council, and our points are going to be considered by the exec board. And I might add as well, one of our local councillors, who's the leader of the Lib Dems on Leeds City Council, after trying and failing countless times to get answers from HS2 and to protect our interests, he was previously supportive of the project, and he wrote to all the residents in our area to say he's now withdrawn his support because of the way HS2 just have no interest, and the DFT have no interest in treating people like us fairly, and he can't stand idly by and watch his fellow neighbours suffer in the way that we're suffering as a result of this project.